when I, heard those stories when I was very, very young at a young age and the power of giving back to the community, I always felt like that was such an important attribute to have as an adult. To know that, when you grow and you do become successful in life, it's so important to figure out a way to give back to the community.
Hey, my name is Veronica Cisneros, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, a mama of 3 girls, and married for 23 years. I am obsessed with helping you navigate through the seasons of marriage, helping couples like you break free from feeling like roommates. I will teach you the secrets to having a healthy marriage by providing tools and tips to help you reconnect in a way that you can't keep your hands off each other, where flirting and kissing is the norm in your household. Setting intentional time to date, get to know and support each other's dreams and goals so that you can grow together without keeping score or judging one another. Where you feel seen and heard even when you disagree. Where arguments end with mutual respect and understanding. Where you work together to build and strengthen your family so no one feels like they're carrying the weight of the family on their own. These are the necessary skills your children need for you to model so that they develop healthy relationships and thrive in life. This is the Empowered and Unapologetic Podcast. Hey ladies, welcome to the Empowered and Unapologetic Podcast. I am your host, Veronica Cisneros. Today's guest is an absolute badass. And you guys are gonna get to go ahead and know her and understand why I am saying she's an absolute badass. So let me go ahead and introduce her. She is an attorney who has successfully litigated high asset dissolution matters, as well as high conflict custody trials. She has also worked with dozens of military clients in litigating complicated issues unique to military families, like deployments and the military retirement division. She enjoys facilitating settlement negotiations to avoid costly trials. And I gotta say, she is totally passionate about what she does. And this is why I was 1,000% drawn to her and I had to have her on the podcast. So please help me by welcoming Amanda Hill. Hey, Amanda.
Hey, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, girl. So I know you, right? And you and I have met a couple times, but I want the audience to know you. So take me through like your story. What is it exactly that attracted you to law?
So yeah, sure. So law in general, I was an undergraduate at Cal Poly Pomona, and I actually was pre-med at first. And I started getting into the chem and the physics classes, and I just was on the struggle bus. And I realized in speaking with somebody who's very near and dear to my heart, my grandpa, um, he pointed out to me, you're really good at arguing and you're really good at articulating yourself. And you used to do speech in other school events and when you were younger, and you love to advocate for people who are disadvantaged. So why don't you think about a different career that, you're more well suited for? And of course, at first I was a little bit offended, like, no, I could do this. I could do this. And then I realized, well, why don't I collaborate things that I'm good at with something that I'm more passionate about as well? And so I switched majors, switched to poli-sci, got really involved in that, and was really excited about that. And in doing that, I met a lot of cool people, and I switched to gearing towards going to law school and wanting to help people that way. And I really jumped into it deep. I did a lot of internships. I did the Justice Corps program in undergraduate, where I worked directly at the courthouse, helping people who don't have the financial ability to hire an attorney. And I was only, I think, 20 years old, and I was there helping people going through divorces who, are in their 40s or 50s, and they're
Yeah.
sitting there with one child on their lap and another pushing in the stroller. And I'm sitting there trying to gather information to help them file for divorce or a restraining order against an abuser. And that's really where I really developed my passion for helping people, specifically in family law, I would say.
Yeah. Um, and so like you're 20 years old, and here you have this mom who is trying to go ahead and seek your services for a divorce. And there's all of these things happening for her. One thing that drew me to you and your work is your ability to go ahead and see the client, and really allow yourself to like express that level of compassion. And even though you might, at 20 years old, obviously, you don't have any kids of your, you're not at that space. You're trying to figure your life out with regards to your career. But it's that level of compassion, and that desire for understanding. Where would you say you got that from? Is that something you learned in childhood? Is that something you had to do for mom or dad?
Yeah, I came from a very humble background. I'm the first to graduate from college. Neither of my parents graduated from college.
Yeah.
They were obviously very hard workers, and I appreciate everything they've done for me. But I, from a very young age, spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and they helped raise me. They lived down the street from me, and they always taught me to you're never better than anybody else. And if you can reach out and help somebody um, with whatever, talents that you do have, um, you should utilize those talents and you should help
Yeah.
other people. Around this time of the year, I always get very emotional because when my grandparents they built their estate by essentially buying some properties back in the 80s and 90s. They gave back to the community. They found needy families, and every Christmas time they would go and take them to the store and help their children get gifts and clothes for them that they couldn't necessarily afford. And so when I heard those stories when I was very, very young at a young age, and the power of giving back to the community, I always felt like that was such an important attribute to have as an adult. To know that, when you grow and you do become successful in life, it's so important to figure out a way to give back to the community.
Absolutely. You speak a lot about grandma and grandpa. Why were they such a huge like role model for you over mom and dad?
So, I mean, my parents are definitely still a huge influence for me as well, but they did live down the street from me, and they would help with drop off and pick up. When I was young, my parents worked, so they helped with dropping me off at school, picking me up from school. They had a office at their house where I essentially set up a whole study space for me, and my nana would make me, coffee or hot cocoa and bring me that while I'm studying for my exams all the way through, even when I was an undergrad. So I would go there and I would study there. And so it was that safe space for me. I'll never forget it because it helped me get to where I'm at.
Yeah. So divorced couples, litigation. Tell me why that is like your zone of genius. Like why, like what is it? Like for me, I absolutely love working with couples. I love working with women. I
Mhm.
can work with other individuals. However, like when I'm working and helping like build up that muscle for women, like helping them step outside of their comfort zone and really, really empowering them, or with couples, help them see past like their pain, like being able to go ahead and heal it and look at it from a different perspective. What is it about this particular population that just like pulls on your heartstrings?
So just to make sure I understand your question, you mean like just divorced couples in general, or are you asking me like specifically what type of clients do I generally work with?
Yeah, which are the clients that you absolutely love working with? Obviously, you can help a wide variety, a wide range, but
Sure,
which ones are like the
sure.
ones that you're like, hell yeah, I'm in it?
Sure. So it's interesting. I have two specific categories of clients that I tend to develop a great working relationship with, and one of them is military personnel who are active duty or veterans. Also military spouses because they have their own complexities that they deal with in their lives, especially if they're mothers. And then I would say the second category of clients that I generally work with are um, kind of similar to who you work with, which are high achieving working moms who maybe own a small business or who are higher income earners, but they're kind of trying to juggle it all. You know, they're running their household, they're running their marriage, and then they're running a business, or they're, working full time and they're navigating the issues that arise when having to juggle all of that in a
Yeah,
marriage. And sometimes it becomes um, an issue that they can't work through. I will say
yeah,
that some of those clients do tend to it takes them a long time to get to a place where they're ready to move forward because they are usually type A and they want to make everything work in their life.
yeah,
And so, and listen, I'm not in a place where I want my clients to feel like I am trying to tell them that the only solution out there is to file for the divorce. That's actually the
no,
opposite of what I want to convey. I definitely always make sure that I have a good conversation with them about where they really are at in their decision making process and making sure that if this is really the right decision for them or if maybe they really need to go back to the drawing board and see if there's other options available before actually going forward with the process.
absolutely. What are the questions or what do you see happening most frequently with regards to high achieving women when they come to you? Like, where are they at when they come to you?
Sure. I think it definitely varies, but a lot of times they're at a place where for several years, if not years, at least several months,
Yeah,
they've already known that the relationship is not great. Um, but again, they're so busy in all other aspects of their lives that they finally decided something triggered them to finally make the phone call and to reach out. But even then, when I have that conversation with them, they still want to know what all their options are. So I tend to see this pattern of even when they're making that phone call and they've known, okay, let me at least make the phone call and call an attorney, they still are like, okay, let me think about it. I'm going to digest this information
mm-hmm,
and then, I'll get back to you. And oftentimes, I would say the average right now, we've actually been keeping track of this, is that I wouldn't say it's usually between 60 and 90 days that they actually will be like, okay, you know what, I think I'm ready.
wow,
Because as women, I really feel like we are creative problem solvers, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so we always want to try to sit and think and talk it out. Is there a way that we can salvage this? Is there an option that we can take that is one step less than really going forward with this?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And they want to feel like they're making the best decision versus men and I tend to see with my male clients that when they come to me, they've already made the decision about 2 months ago. They've made a few of their own moves on their own. And when they hire me, they're ready to, so to speak, pull the trigger and go forward. And they're far more decisive in that way.
yeah,
But I do think as problem solvers,
mm-hmm,
it's more of a conversation, that first
yeah.
initial contact that I have with them. It's a conversation of, okay, deep breath, what are my options? Because this is hell that I'm going through. And is this the right choice for me?
One question I often get from women is, how do I know this relationship is over? How do I know
Mm.
that the relationship has run its course and it's time to separate and maybe, divorce, look towards the path of divorce? And for me, there are certain indicators of, yeah, it looks like we're here, and that's, some of the questions I'll ask is, you know, can you see your husband with someone else? and what feelings do
Mm,
you have about them being with somebody else? Has the arguments gotten so bad that there's literally not one moment that you can remember where you guys are not arguing? You know,
mm,
another thing is, where are you at emotionally? Do you find yourself just being completely emotionally checked out? There are obviously other questions that I ask, just to see, just to kind of assess where they're at, how I can help, and in what ways am I going to help. For you, what are some clear indications? I love that you separated the men and the female. Like females, they'll, come in, although they feel ready, they take about the 60 to 90 days until they're like, okay, we're ready to pull the trigger. We're men, and it's really interesting how you said we're men. They've already done some of the work on their own, and they've already made moves, towards really ending the relationship. And so now they've recruited you to just, let's go ahead and make this happen legally.
mm-hmm.
Um, what would you say are like some signs for you? So for the women that are like, they're back and forth, what would you say are signs for you where, what? It's maybe it's not time. And maybe, they can go that route of, therapy and reconciling.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, and to be clear, there are times where I have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation with somebody and I tell them, you know what, I don't think you're ready to sign up. I don't think
That's
you're
what I
ready
love
to
about
start
you.
this process.
That's what I love about you. Mm-hmm.
I don't think you are, and I will repeat back some of the things that they've said to me. You've just told me this. To me, that makes me believe that you're not sure if this is the right decision. So I want you to go talk to a therapist, confide in
Mm-hmm.
friends, speak to somebody who you trust within your family, and really have a good heart to heart with them about whether this is something that you truly want or whether you feel so lost in this relationship, but maybe there are tools out there that can help you navigate through it while remaining in the relationship. And maybe you give yourself a time frame to figure those things out, to gather those tools. But maybe let's say in 6 months, if you feel like, nope, things haven't changed and I've tried to utilize those tools, or you know what, I can only change myself. I can't change him and it's
Mm-hmm.
not working out and he's
Mm-hmm.
not willing to do the changes or putting in those efforts, then at least you can say you did everything you could and you're going to trust me, you're going to feel much better about that decision once you do decide to make it.
Mm-hmm. That right there is what, again, what drew me. There's not a lot of attorneys that will do that. It's like, okay, listen, I don't, your sob story, go ahead and give it to somebody else. Are we doing this? Are we not? Or, I've heard women, who have like, I've counseled, who have said like, I felt like I was signing papers and it just felt like everything was expedited. And I really wasn't given an opportunity to just kind of like sit in it for a minute. It felt
Mm-hmm.
like, nope, divorce is the option. This is where we're going to go, and boom, 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 and it's done. This is truly what sets you apart from other attorneys. Why do you use that approach?
I mean, I think it's important in an attorney client relationship that it really is a relationship, in that it's a good fit.
Yeah.
Because I have found that when somebody feels pressured, not by me, but maybe like an outsider, a third party, or a family member, you should just leave that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you
Mm-hmm.
still putting up with his shit for? Pardon my
Mm-hmm.
French.
No, girl, we
But,
cuss all day
but,
here.
okay, good.
Yeah, all day, all day.
So you'll hear that, and I'll get that in that initial consult. They'll tell me, my friends or my mom told me I really should leave this guy or X, Y,
Mm-hmm.
and Z,
Mm-hmm.
and I will say, but what do you want?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what you want? And so that's important to me because I think that not everybody's going to be a good fit,
Yeah.
and I can't take every client that I speak with because it's not going to be good for me, but it's more importantly not going to be good for them. And it's so important to have a good fit with your attorney because it's one of the hardest things, maybe the hardest thing that somebody goes through in their life.
Yeah.
And so if if it's not a good personality fit, then it's really going to make that process even worse for the client. It really is. And I'm very clear of what the expectation is from that initial, contact that I have with the clients, that the way I practice is very transparent, very to the point, and good, bad, and ugly. You're going to hear it from me, even if
Yeah.
it's critical feedback that I have to give to you on maybe some missteps that have been taken on your part. And I always say this too, is trust me, I'm not your therapist, but maybe you should speak to one, because that's not my role. I'm your legal counsel if you need mental health assistance, or if you really just need somebody to speak to coach you through this process, to help you with the emotional aspect of this. I've got somebody, but that's not me. And so I definitely make that clear distinction from the very beginning.
I love that. The passion is so low these days that I feel parenthood and other commitments are taking control. I want to feel like it's me he wants to spend time with. Yeah, I've said those exact words 100 times to my friends after realizing that the man I said I do to wasn't the same person. Or was I just imagining it? But here's what I finally realized that changed things for me almost overnight. I started to use 4 simple and effective steps that changed our communication and connection for the better. As a licensed marriage and family therapist, I got excited and started showing my clients, and they too were seeing changes instantly. Whether you've been married for 1 year or 15, these tips work, and I can't wait to share them with you. Girl, I got you. I want to personally invite you to my live 2-hour online workshop. This is for moms who have said, the empty promises just aggravate me so much. He says he will do something or take care of something, then he doesn't. Communication has always been a weak point for us. He says things without thinking. I try to logically work through things, and he reacts emotionally. I try to say what I feel in a constructive manner. He takes it personally and attacks me. Boundaries are a confusing topic for me because I am a helper. I have this innate need to help anyone I can. So if this is you and you are ready to get off this hamster wheel, then allow me to guide you through this 4-step process. I can't wait to meet you personally. So again, this is a 2-hour live workshop. And for whatever reason, if you cannot attend, girl, I got you. This will be recorded, which means you will have lifetime access. This is for women only. If you are ready to go from roommates to lovers, then let's go ahead and step outside of our comfort zones together. Allow me to guide you. If you're ready, what I'd like you to do is go to empoweredandunapologetic.com/workshop. Again, that is empoweredandunapologetic.com/workshop. Get ready, mama, because we are about to do some work. So let's say we're there, right? We're there in that space where it's like, you know what? I'm done. I'm emotionally checked out. I can see my husband with somebody else. Hell, I'd even match him with somebody else at this point. The argument has gotten so bad that there is no form of reconciling. I've gone through couples therapy, and either he continues to cheat or I'm already moved out. So what are the steps that maybe someone should make either before calling you or when they call you?
Sure. So it really obviously does vary depending on the financial picture. I will say that's the biggest impact, I will say, as far as how much preparation you need to do. So I would say the 2 biggest factors is, how many assets you have and how much work you're going to need to kind of put into preparing that documentation. But it would also be if you have children, because obviously if there's children involved, that's a game changer, and there's a totally different approach to the process. And you always want to keep the, children at top of mind when it comes to how to navigate that process. So I would say in regards to preparation, it's really mentally preparing yourself for the long haul, because in California specifically, you cannot get divorced any sooner than 6 months. That's the minimum. And I would say the average time it takes to finalize a divorce process is between 12 months to 2 years.
Wow.
So, and that's with, maybe a middle of the road type case that has a few issues, maybe a home, some children, maybe the parties or the wife and husband are arguing over, you know, some aspects of it, but maybe they have some agreements. So it is mentally, part of the process is mentally preparing yourself to what that's going to look like. And so um, I think it's important to keep that in mind before starting the process, of not thinking that, okay, now that you are mentally prepared to start the process, that it's going to happen right away.
Yeah,
And I make that
definitely.
very clear distinction to the client, that
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you feel confident that you're ready to make this decision, but that doesn't mean that now that you're ready to start the process, that the process is going to be complete overnight. It
Yeah.
definitely isn't, and I think that having your kind of core group ready to go is good. Obviously, there are caveats to that. What I mean by that is if there is domestic violence in play, or you're fearful of your safety, that's a totally different ball game, and you want to make sure that I would say in that regard, speak to counsel much sooner to make sure
Mm-hmm.
you're not making moves that are putting yourself in danger
Yeah.
or risking the safety of you and your children. So
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely a more serious time where you would say, okay, before I do anything, I need to speak to an attorney first so I can get assistance with how to navigate this to make sure, I'm putting myself in a situation that's not going to cause me to be unsafe, or
Yeah,
my children unsafe. Yeah.
definitely. One of the biggest hurdles I find when women are in that space of, okay, I think I'm ready to contact a divorce attorney. Usually when they're in that space, it's so crazy. And this happens every single time. They're thinking they're trying to go ahead and get their mind wrapped around it. And then they'll come back in and say, well, shit, my husband already filed, and it's like,
Hmm.
okay, now, now I feel like the clock is ticking, and I have all these deadlines, and my ass was just thinking about it. He totally pulled the trigger. Um, how do we find the right attorney? How do we know we have a really good attorney that has our back? Because this is something I hear all of the time. I've went to this attorney, and this attorney didn't even hear anything I had to say. I went to this attorney, and this attorney, it sounds like they just want my money. And I'm just being billed for all of these things, and I don't know why. There's like this lack of communication. So as a divorce attorney, what tips can you give us to go ahead and find the right attorney and ask the right questions?
Sure. So I think it's important to know, as the potential client, what your goals are, and figuring out in your
Mm,
own head before even speaking to somebody, what are your goals? Because everybody has different goals. Some people's goals are, he screwed me over, so I don't care. Let's do everything to get back at him.
yeah,
And you know what? I don't judge those people. Those people need to work through what they're working through and get to a place that hopefully they're not no longer in that space later on.
yeah,
But if that's their goal, then then that type of person is going to be looking for somebody who is going to be aggressive, and maybe aggressive even unnecessarily so. And that, because you don't want to set the expectation that my goal is X, but an attorney is not going to do those things for you, that particular attorney,
yeah. That
right?
makes
And
sense.
so setting those goals up first, to give you another example, is if your goal is settlement, but you see that attorney is always about litigation and we'll beat the other side in court, well, that's definitely not going to be a good fit, right?
Hmm.
Because they're probably going to suggest to you strategy that's not going to fit with what your core goals are for how
Yeah,
to get you out of this process.
yeah,
So, and also, I think early on when you have that first call with an attorney, you're going to hear in the tone of their voice, the way they listen to you, whether they are going to be a good fit and whether you need that from your legal counsel. Because there are some people who I speak with who say, you know what, I feel like I can handle some of the paperwork on my own. I just need to know I'm doing it correctly. Well, then, that attorney, or that person, potential client, they may not, need certain things from their attorney. They may not need the hand holding, but there are other people that go, I'm so overwhelmed with this process.
yeah.
How can you get me out of it? And I just need this sense of relief. okay, then you know that you're going to need somebody who's willing to and also able and has the capacity to provide that assistance that's going to be on a more personal level as well as on a more regular level, because there are some firms that they have too many cases, they're too overworked, they don't have enough staff, and you're probably not going to hear from them very often. Well, if that's important to you to be able to have that regular contact and be updated regularly or be able to have availability to speak to them when you need them, then you need to make sure that they have the capacity to take on your case in your particular situation.
That makes so much sense. I love how you broke that down. I would have never thought about that. I would have gone straight to, like, what are their expertise? But you went straight to go back to you. What do you want? What's your mission? If you want to get his ass back and you're like in vendetta mode, first off, go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But but yeah, if you're
Yeah.
in, right. But if you're in vendetta mode, it's like, all right, well then, a attorney that is not in that vendetta mode and is looking at, mediation or whatever, it's probably not the best fit. And so I love how you put that back on the clients, because there's this empowering component to it. Like, I feel empowered because I can go ahead and make this decision by really laser focusing on, what is my goal? What do I want the outcome to look like? And it sounds like when you pick up that phone to contact this attorney, being very, very clear, this is the goal that I'm looking for. Are you able to help me, and at what capacity? What other questions would you say would be important for us to ask when we're on the phone with an attorney?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, how long would it take for me to, once I make the decision to move forward with filing for the divorce, how long with your firm would it take for us to actually get the process started and get it filed with the court? What is your process like to contact and get him or her served? I would ask, what is your availability and what is your normal practice with clients as far as your availability to take phone calls? How regularly do you get back to your clients?
Mm-hmm.
Because time and time again, I'll have people call me who've had an attorney in the past, and they're jaded because they never heard back from their attorney, or they only heard back from their attorney once a month, and it was for them to pay another retainer, or it was because shit hit the fan and now we got to really move and do something. So the amount of communication and contact you're going to get from that particular attorney, you want to ask that right from the get when you have that conversation is, okay, at your firm, how often should I be expected to hear from you? How often should I be updated on my case? What is our relationship going to look like as far as what am I going to be responsible for as far as providing you what information and documents, and so on and so forth, because you want to know, okay, what am I setting myself up for? If I sign up with this attorney and I'm hiring this individual to navigate me through this legal process, how are they going to guide me through it? And is that what I need? If what they can provide is what I need, then it's probably a good fit. But if they're saying, well, we've got a lot of cases right now, or, we really pride ourselves on being litigation attorneys, and we'll go to court and we'll go to bat for you, but that's not what you want and that's not what your goal is, then it's not going to be a good fit. And it's totally acceptable and respectable to say, you know what, I don't know if this is going to be a good fit, and then call somebody else. It's okay to wait and make sure you really have I really find it important, at least for me, that it's a personality fit. It really does have to be a good personality fit. You don't have to be best friends, and sure, I don't think you need to be best friends, and probably not healthy to be best friends with your legal counsel, but you do want to make sure that you're going to be able to meet they're going to be able to meet your expectations, and they believe your expectations are reasonable.
Bingo. Can you give us maybe 2 or 3 red flags to look for when we're, in this hiring process?
Oh, sure. I would say the biggest one is when an attorney tells you, without actually listening to you, that they can get you everything you're asking for. They're going to get you $5,000 in spousal support. Don't worry, you're going to keep all the assets. Or don't worry, I'm going to make sure you keep this house. If they make big promises right from that first call, red flag. They don't know enough about you to make those promises to you. They're just trying to get you signed on.
Yeah.
So that's a big red flag. I would say the second red flag is they interrupt you and don't hear you out. Meaning, if they don't at least give you 3 to 5 minutes in that first phone call to just let you vent about why you are making this phone call, they're not going to ever give you time to speak and hear you out throughout the entire process.
Love that.
So make sure that the person you're speaking with, of course, they're going to at some point have to interject and kind of keep the conversation going. But if they don't at least give you 3 to 5 minutes of their time in that first phone call, they're not going to give it to you later on when you're actually signed on as a client. I would say that's the second one. And I would say the third one is they try to, let's say if you push back on the retainer and as a client and say, well, I don't know if I can afford that. And then they start negotiating with you. In my opinion, they don't actually value their own time. And I think an attorney who is confident in their skills is not going to negotiate their fees. They're going to say, you know what, you're going to gain this much value from me being your representative.
Bingo.
That, you know, just as I find that you have your own value in your space and your career and what you do for a living, I value myself and my services. So if they start, because maybe they're desperate for new clients or they're just trying to sign you up, they start trying to negotiate with you on that initial phone call, that's a red flag for me too.
Yeah. I 1,000% agree. And I appreciate the way you just described that. If they do not value their time, it is 1,000% a red flag. They're trying to go ahead and figure out a way to go ahead and get you in, but the quality of service is not going to be there. You might have an attorney, and at the same time, what type of attorney do you have? You have somebody that doesn't even believe, or value their own work. And so why the hell would they value your life, at the capacity that you need them to during that really difficult time where, I mean, it's not like we're asking, for a kumbaya moment. We're literally going through divorce. And unfortunately, most divorces are not amicable, and it does get dirty. And so you want somebody that has that level of confidence going in, because if they have that self-confidence going in, they 1,000% will go ahead and take that time to hear you and really, really build up your case to, again, not give you the world, but get you to a place where it's in line with some of your goals. I love that.
Yes.
I really, really love that. So why is it important that we contact a divorce attorney versus trying to do the divorce process on our own?
Sure. So I'll start with this. You can do it on your own. Absolutely. I am not one of those attorneys that says, oh, you can't, you'll fail and you'll mess up your whole life if you don't hire an attorney. I am not a doom and gloom attorney. That's not how I practice. In fact, when some people who I speak with ask me that, I say, you know what? You may be able to. Absolutely. If you want, give it a try yourself. But here's a few warnings I'll give you, which is once you start doing stuff yourself, and let's say you make a mistake along the way, which is totally understandable because you don't do this for a living, it's hard to fix that problem. And it's a lot more expensive and stressful if you then have to hire an attorney to fix it because you weren't able to navigate it yourself.
Yeah.
Right? When you try to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that the bigger deciding factor is really, what do you have at stake? If you have children at stake, very important to talk to an attorney, at least at a consulting level. At least figure out, what does California law say? What are my rights? Here's specific to my situation.
Yeah.
And, what are my options there? If you have significant assets like property, investment accounts, retirement accounts, again, at a minimum, you want to talk to, at least get some information as far as a consulting aspect goes of what that even looks like to divide those types of accounts. But there are also people who come to me and they're like, it's completely amicable. We have a full agreement. I really don't know if I need an attorney. And I will say to them, you may not, but
Yeah.
wouldn't it be great to know that you have this agreement and you feel really confident about this agreement, that it's written up and it's enforceable under California law, and you know that it was done correctly, so somebody can't try to unravel it if somebody changes
Yeah.
their mind down the line,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Love that.
So I think on all levels, it's always beneficial to have legal counsel, because you get that peace of mind that, it is complying with the law, but
The law.
it also is, you feel good that if anything were to go awry in the future, and maybe right now you guys are on good terms, but even 2
Mm-hmm.
months from now, because somebody starts dating again or has a
Mm-hmm.
new significant other, emotions come into play and that agreement is out the door. And all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
you're scrambling because you thought you had an agreement, but things changed, because things can change very rapidly during the divorce proceeding.
Yeah.
Even before you file, you can think, you know what, I'm just going to take my time with this process because we really are going to try to do this amicably. And then boom, overnight something happens. And
Bingo.
now you're scrambling and you're in panic mode.
Yeah.
So I believe that if you are in a position where you know that the relationship isn't salvageable, to have that conversation initially with an attorney to know what your options are before you even decide you're ready to file the paperwork.
Love that. Love that. Amanda, I feel like we just took a class. Like literally, I feel like I owe you money right now. You gave us so much information. And like I said earlier, I appreciate not only your compassion, but like just that great sense of pride that you have in the work that you do. I absolutely love that about you. So for those of us that are listening and they're like, holy shit, totally need Amanda in my court, how do we find you?
Sure. So you can find us online, knhlawgroup.com. You can also find me on social media, Instagram, same thing, KNH Law Group.
Mm-hmm.
We have TikTok. We're just building it. I mean, I'm a millennial. I'm not a Gen Zer, so we're just building our TikTok handle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, online, obviously our phone number is 858-434-1020. And reach out to us. We have a whole team that's ready to talk to people. And again, we always make sure that it is a good fit
Yep.
before we, move forward with that relationship.
Amanda, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
What's up, ladies? Just want to let you guys know that your ratings and reviews for this podcast are greatly appreciated. If you love this podcast, please go to iTunes right now, write a review, rate the episode, and subscribe. Don't forget to share it with your friends.
I'm Madeline, and I'm the host of the Happiest Sober podcast. I got sober in my 20s after a decade of gray area drinking, and the greatest plot twist of all time was realizing that alcohol, the thing that I thought made my life the most happy and fun and exciting, was actually the exact thing preventing me from living my happiest and best life. My mom is 40 years sober, and she joins me on my podcast very often. I like to call her my part-time co-host, and I also bring you solo episodes where I share my top tips, tricks, and mindset shifts in sobriety, and lots of how-tos for navigating all the things sober, from weddings to parties to holidays to bachelorette parties to trips. I'm also joined by so many guests who come on and share their sober stories, and they're all so inspiring. I'm here to show you that life doesn't end when you quit drinking. In fact, it's very much the opposite. And no matter what your relationship was with alcohol, life can be the absolute happiest when you're sober. New episodes come out every Tuesday. You can listen to Happiest Sober podcast wherever you get your podcasts.